Hello, friends, and welcome to the Cinemondo podcast. Wow, there's a crowd in here. Who are these people?
It's great to see our old friends, Jason Figgis and John West from across the pond. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hello. Hello there.
It's great.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we had you on last year when your film Winifred Meeks, I think it's called The Ghost of Winifred Meeks. Have you changed the title a little bit?
No, in America, or the US, it's still called Winifred Meeks, and in Britain, it's called The Ghost of Winifred Meeks.
Okay. Well, that's available streaming on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, Bayview and then High Flyers Films.
Gotcha.
What is the marketing reason for that?
Really because the Pinewood guys just felt that it would grab attention quicker, and they felt it sounded a bit like a historical film.
Yeah.
Winifred Meeks, his old name, and they thought those who were interested in kind of haunted house movies might pass it by. So they thought, let's be quite literal here, and they know it's a haunted house film.
It's strange though they wouldn't do that for American audiences too.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, maybe
we like ghosts too, you know.
Yeah. I don't know why they didn't do that, because we asked Bayview if they were going to change the name, and they said no, they were happy with the name it had. They'd be able to push it that way. So we said, yeah, well, you guys know what you're doing. We'll leave you to it. Yeah.
I'm always interested in that.
Well, the Figgis and West, they have a production team, and they not only did Winifred Meeks, but they've done a lot of different things. I mean, Simon Marsden, The Haunted Life in Pictures is also available out now, which is a great documentary about the famous photographer. That's available to view too. And most recently, they've just done a reworking of the classic F.W. Murnau 1922 film Nosferatu. And Hugh Doolan, who's a guest, will be joining us shortly, did the music. And I guess you guys either sort of cleaned it up or did some other things for this new edition, or did you not? Or is it just...
Yeah, no, we did. What I wanted to do, I wanted to find the longest version available of the film, because a lot of the time they release a version that's like maybe 75 minutes. So I found a version that was 85 minutes, and a lot of the extra kind of exposition had been removed. And I found this version and thought, wow, that's stuff I've never seen before. And it was a really good copy. Now, a lot of the time they think you got to colorize things for day and night, but I basically, regraded it in crisp black and white because I just like the uniformity of it. I wouldn't be a big fan of that, blue frame, red frame, orange frame. I found it very distracting. And you ended up kind of waiting for, oh, this is the day shot, this is the night shot, this is whatever, So I just thought, no, I'm just going to make this a black and white movie, because let's face it, after that, when they really got into black and white, it was just black and white. They didn't start tinting. It was like until later on. Right. So I wanted to just make a really beautiful version, but I also had to redo all of the titles and all of the what are they called, Burke? The frames that with the those kind of interframe things with I always forget what they're called.
The title cards.
Title card, yeah. So I had to do all of that, and the dialogue cards. I had to do all of those. So, which I thought was going to be a really easy job, and it turned out to be a very lengthy thing to do, and especially try and keep the mood, of the piece, and not add something that seemed very modern to it. So I had a lot of experimentation involved there, just to kind of keep that pure. So it turned out being a much longer job. But once I had that done, I thought, you know what? The reason I'd done it in the first place was to get it scored. And I'd worked with Hugh Doolan on 2 other projects. Funnily enough, he scored the Simon Marsden documentary, which is released now at the same time as Nosferatu, coincidentally or synchronously, whichever prefer to say. And he also did a great job on a short film called The Wake, which had some amazing Irish musicians, Christy Moore, Donal Lunny, and also Declan O'Rourke, who's an amazing musician. He actually appeared as a character in it. It's his debut ever on screen. But Hugh scored that as well with his daughter again. He was very young at the time. There's Hugh.
Speaking of
him, there he is.
He heard us.
I'm not going to say
hello,
Kathy,
Burke, Mark, John, Jason.
Hugh.
How are you, Hugh? Yeah,
sorry, I'm late. I thought it was 8 o'clock, but anyway.
No, it's all right.
No worries.
Jason gave you a good intro.
Yeah, you came at the right time. Jason was just talking about Nosferatu and how he worked with you on previous projects and scoring the
That's right.
film. So, and I just to say, I saw a clip, a small 3-minute clip on YouTube. I think it was called "Sad Farewell" with your music, and it really fits the piece. But I would love for you to talk more about, how you wanted to score this classic film.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I can. You want me to talk about it now?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're on.
Dive in, yeah.
We're on. Okay. Glasses
Millions
off.
of people are watching.
Yeah. Well, it was really you can blame Jason because it was his idea, prior to him putting the idea in my head, I'd never had notions of scoring any kind of classical sounding soundtracks. So I just have to say that first, because primarily, I started off as a busker. I'm into folk and blues, and I'm into songs, and I'm into bands, and then as I got into sound engineering, I got into ambient soundscapes and the idea of atmosphere, or the idea of film for music. But never in my wildest dreams had I thought that I would try and emulate something like something nearing something that sounded like a symphony. You know what I mean?
Right.
Although I had all the tools in my toolbox, like in my studio, I'd always kind of dabbled with them. So anyway, when Jason put it to me, I kind of had to think about it, and ultimately I said yes, because I'd have kicked myself if I hadn't taken the opportunity of a challenge of this kind of magnitude.
Right.
Because I like a challenge. We should all challenge ourselves all the time.
Right.
Because if you're not, I find no matter what it is, if it's your job or if it's your passion or whatever, if you're not learning, you're not growing. So I thought, okay, this is a perfect kind of opportunity to get stuck in. So I thought, well, let's have a go with it. And then when I decided to do it, I was mindful that I certainly didn't want to listen to anything to do with that had been done for Nosferatu, because I was aware that a lot of people had done soundtracks. So I just wanted to go into my silo and start the project with my own blinkers on. I didn't want to be kind of influenced by, this person did it like this band did it like that. I just went and I did my own thing. I didn't even listen to the original. And when I got the film from Jason, I just sat down and I just very simply sat with the keyboard in front of me watching the film, and I let it run for 80 minutes. And as it ran, I'm no keyboard player, but I know a few chords. So what I did was I motif jammed it. So I had to kind of put markers in. Another decision I made was not traditionally in a studio, you use a click track, or you decide it's 4/4 or it's this, particular tempo. I just left my sequencer for the entire 80 minutes at, I can't remember what it was, but 78. But I decided not to be a slave to a click or to any particular, because otherwise it's going to sound too rigid. The approach that I was going for was kind of like make it sound like a lot of passionate kind of local amateur musicians who play in an orchestra somewhere out there in Transylvania.
Right.
But who are very passionate about what they do. So because I knew that I'm limited, I'm no Gustav Mahler, I'm no Leonard Bernstein in terms of on point arrangement and so on. I'm just I won't say I wing it, because I put a lot of time into kind of making it sweet. It's like seasoning a soup or a stew, except the stew just sat there like for 2 years. So I was back and forth to different cues or whatever. But so the essence of the soundtrack is really, in that kind of not amateurish, but I wanted it to sound like it was from the period. It was like from like the characters that we're seeing in it. It's like
the
if
film's
they
got
went
kind
to a
of an
recital.
edge to it like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, the scene that I saw was titled "Sad Farewell," and it's a sad scene. And I felt the music that you put to it had a forlorn sort of elegiac quality to it, and I think at least for those 3 minutes. So you captured it in that scene anyway.
Yeah, well, you know, the funny thing about that one is so I kind of finished it, and I ran it by Jason and John, and they said, well, you know, can you give us a few more kind of pieces that are a little bit more tender? So I was kind of scrambling around for ideas, because I totally agreed with them that there were parts of the film that needed a kind of a soft touch. I've been kind of going for the jugular with the long fingernails all over the film. So I had to pull it back a bit. So plan B was that during the kind of the making of the soundtrack, my son Daniel, who was 12 at the time, was just learning some piano, and I managed to snatch a recording of him one Saturday afternoon as he was literally improvising a piece, and I recorded it. And that is basically Sad Farewell. And what I did was then 2 years later, so when Daniel was 14 and when Jessica was like 15 or 16, I got Jessica to accompany his piano piece. And so she then improvised her wordless vocal over that. And that is what became Sad Farewell. And I added some strings or whatever just to embellish it.
Right.
So
well, Jessica's voice is tremendous. I mentioned before we got on that it reminded me of the vocalizations and all of the Ennio Morricone scores, you know, and
yes.
Her voice is incredible. Is she there? Is Jessica there?
She is actually. She's just going to come and join us here now.
Okay, but
I was wondering if you said Hugh and Jessica, and where's Jessica?
Hello.
I know. Display name. I was going to put Aunt Jessica in brackets or whatever, but she's here. She said she'd join us, and now she's here.
Thanks for joining us.
Nice to really virtually meet you guys. Mad how everyone from all around the world can connect like this.
I know, it's amazing.
We're in Hollywood at the bottom.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I can only dream of going to Hollywood, so
you should
It is a dream.
A free pass. Yeah, no audition. We're straight there, straight in there.
Everything you hear about Hollywood is totally true.
It's a dream town.
Yeah, I hear a lot. But thank you so much for your kind words. I was listening there. It really means a lot.
I also see, as I watched some of your videos when you guys were playing on the street, I think in Dublin City, and it was like you have a tremendous voice, Jessica. So it's beautiful. Whether you're doing sort of pop stuff or this vocalization, I think it's a great choice to have you singing, you know, on this score. I think I don't know how much you're in it, but at least what I heard in the Sad Farewell was really brilliant. So
she's in a good few cues there, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a really great thing to be a part of. Obviously, when he told me about this project, I was really, really excited, and I found it really fascinating, like just the whole idea of it, and the fact that, you know, you're able to paint a picture with music, with you know, the score and seeing what's going on, and the amazing it's just so amazing. And I was 13, 14 at the time, and I remember he'd call me down. I'd be upstairs like reading or doing homework, and he'd call me down at like 11 p.m. and be like, "Do you want to just do some vocals for this?" And I had never even heard like what he was. Just
first time. She just put the headphones on.
It was completely improvised, and I kind of just felt the music, and I think that's what makes it even more special, that I didn't like kind of go over what I was going to do and make it perfect and everything. I kind of just went with the music. And obviously my voice has definitely matured in the past 5 years. And during that time, I was really into classical. I was being classically trained and everything, but my voice is very different now. But when I look back at it, it's really, really cool to hear it and see the story develop.
Well, it's a fun kind of genre for anybody. You know, I'd have loved a crack at kind of, you know, quasi opera singing, you know, to make it scary. You know, it is kind of fun.
Yeah, totally.
Well, you know,
when you're not.
well, what I was going to say, what's really exciting is that, you know, this is the 100-year anniversary of this film, and that's actually, and we'll go to John because we'll get John in here. March 5th, it's going to be premiering at the Alan Bates Theater. Tell us a little bit more about that, John.
Yeah, it's in Halesworth. It's a little town in Suffolk, and I know the people that run it. And I really wanted to push for it to be on the 100th anniversary to the day, and they said, "Great, brilliant, bring it on." So, so that's our very first cinema screening of that version. So I'm really looking forward to going. I'll introduce it, get Jason on to say a few words via the wonders of the internet, and hopefully we'll have a full house.
You just send us some video from that. Someone videotape it, and we'll put it on the show. That'd be awesome.
I will do. I'll get someone to film it. Definitely.
Yeah, that'd be great. It sounds like an amazing event. Love it.
Yeah, and the Alan Bates Theatre, you can't get better than that.
It's so beautiful there. Yeah, I mean, I've never been, but I've seen video footage of it, and it's such a beautiful place in this amazing old building called the Cut. Yeah, really incredible. It's kind of perfect. I'm a huge fan of Alan Bates, so having it premiere there is just like,
who isn't? Yeah.
Is that his hometown? Is that where he's from? Or
he opened the theater himself actually shortly before he passed away.
I
so
see.
He was thrilled that they were honoring him with that, and he went
I see.
and written and everything.
That's really cool.
You know, to me, what is interesting about this project, the more I think about it, the more I've been involved in things where I've worked on something on an old film. And what's interesting to me about it is the fact that you're basically collaborating with filmmakers who made something 100 years ago. And you're sort of like trying to read into what their intentions were with their project, with their film, their story they were trying to tell. And you're trying to tell the story in your way, in collaboration with these people who made this 100 years ago. It's an interesting idea, and it really kind of, there's nothing, it's like, as a musician, I know you know this, that when you learn to play someone else's music on your instrument, like when I learn a Beatles song on the guitar, suddenly I have a really heavy connection to John Lennon's playing style or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
of course, yeah.
If you know how, if you learn those chords and the progression and everything, you really feel a connection to it. So when you're working on a score for this film, you're watching the film and you're trying to help those filmmakers 100 years ago. You're trying to sort of help them along a little bit.
Yeah.
Did you ever get that feeling of the presence of those filmmakers and this creative collaboration that you're doing across so much time?
Yeah, no, I really did. And as Jessica alluded to, like, you know, I was doing all of this, you know, kind of late at night and what have you. And, you know, there's, I could have sworn our house was kind of overrun with rats and everything and mice. And, you know, it's like there were nights where I didn't sleep terribly well. And, you know, I mean, there was a little spell. We did have a few little mice one cold winter. And I thought, like, I started to imagine that they were coming to the house because the master had called.
You don't know. That's not true. You don't know that. Yeah,
Who
it
knows?
could be true.
Who knows?
You've been casting that spell from 100
Yeah,
years
and
ago.
it could have been, like, I have to bring in, there's a, you know, so there's Jessica, Daniel, and the other star of the soundtrack was I decided that I would try and learn the violin while I was doing this soundtrack so as to add something to it. But
that's an analog instrument, by the way, for our viewers who may not recognize it.
Yes, exactly.
You guys do a quick little moment. Do a little bit.
When I bought it, I realized that it was broken. As in the action is way too high. So anyway, what I did was I just sampled myself playing really badly because I don't know how to play. And I sampled those sounds and I made some instruments out of them.
Right.
And they feature quite heavily in the soundtrack. So it's just kind of like. So, and it's amazing what you can, like, literally, I don't play the violin and I just picked it up. I don't know what I'm doing and I scratched it. And that is just like perfect for my kind of amateur but passionate.
That's not amateur. That's not amateur. That's instinctive. That's instinctive. There's a big difference between just amateur and instinctive. If you're a musician, you just have a feel for what's going to work. I mean, that to me just there sounds like scurrying rats. You know, you get that feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
It does.
Yeah, I better check the gutters now.
You probably
I
clean
don't
them
want
up,
them to
Brad.
come back, you know.
Jessica, did you have to sing along to that violin screeching at all?
I don't think I did, but I think if I was put in that situation again, I would, you know, adapt to it and just kind of sing the melody of the violin.
Yeah.
You feel the music, feel the, you know, eeriness of it.
Actually, some of the vocal melodies that Jessica came up with then set me on a course for revising what I might have done for some cues, because I thought like she took the lead. So then what I did was I backfilled it with string arrangements to go with her vocal melody, because I thought like Jason said, you know, she's the real instrument. You know, I'm messing around with keys, and I had some idea what I was doing, but there's no substitute for the human voice. You know, there
it's
really
good to
isn't.
have the courage to roll with things like that. You know, when you have something and you hear something and you're like, okay, let's change direction here. You know,
Yeah.
And does he Jessica, is he a very specific, does he give you very specific direction, or were you allowed to sort of just go off on your own? And is he easy to work with?
Yeah, very easy to work with. We've obviously, I've grown up in a really musical house, and just constantly music everywhere, and it's really cool when I you know, as a young girl, seeing your father like working on such cool projects, and we like write a lot of songs together, and we have a little, well, he likes to say studio, but it's like in the corner of our living room where we
it's a computer studio.
Yeah, so we work very closely on music all the time, constantly, like
every day.
Even to this day, like I'm pretty sure we're doing something later.
We're doing something later,
yeah. So he's very, obviously there's times where it's kind of like, you know, I want to go to sleep, can I just, but
Dad.
Yeah, that's the beauty of having the studio in your house. It's like it's 24/7 operation, you know.
Yeah.
Every weekend we're like, so what are we doing today? Do I have the day off, or do you have the day off? You know?
Do I have to sing for you now?
It's good to keep everything on one power strip. So that's the way. I have a recording studio here, this mess in the background, and it's on one. I can click one switch and I'm ready to record. That's okay. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I love that. I really
plug in and set up and pull guitars out of cases. I never put my guitars in cases. They're all in a rack stand over here, and
just in case.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jessica.
Burke works for Marvel, you know, so he's got
well, I do work for Marvel sometimes, but I'm not a.
Well,
he does.
I don't have snipers outside the window right now in case I spill.
Yeah, dangerous work. Dangerous work. You don't know.
Top secret.
I can't say anything. I can't talk.
Yep. Can't talk about it.
Or Tom Cruise work, you know, don't you recognize me?
That's an old story.
Oh my God.
Did you have a question for Jessica?
I was going to ask if Jessica had seen Nosferatu before she did the soundtrack, or were you just winging it? Like, how much direction did you get for what this was going to be?
Well, while I was singing, I'd come down and it'd be completely improvised, but I would see it on a screen, just like a really small screen.
Yeah, a kind of a small version.
So I was like singing with the headphones, and I kind of had an eye on what was happening, you know, in case there was like a jump scare, and I'd be like, ah! You know. So
Very cool.
I kind of had a side eye, but my main aim, I mean, I was like 13. I kind of just really wanted to feel the music, and I think that's kind of, you know, you tell the story through feeling the music and connecting with whoever's listening or watching. So that was like my main goal with it. But I did have a side eye. I was looking at the side of my eye.
I love that it's sort of, in a way, how the film would be projected as a silent film and someone would play along with it.
Yeah.
And I like that this is, in a way, you sort of reinventing that in the digital age of like, we're going to play this music along with the film, just like they used to.
They would improvise in the theaters.
I love that. Yeah, they would like watch the film as they played. I think that's really, really amazing.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
one last question. You wrote that, you recorded that a few years ago, right? You said 5 years ago or 4. Do you feel like, or was it less than that?
I think it was 4 or 5. Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel you look like you would have done something differently, or are you just like happy with the way it is and happy, or you go, oh, maybe I would have do it differently if I was, doing it right now? I guess that's always something.
I mean, my voice has really, really changed and developed over the past few years. But when I look back on it, I try, when you have a piece of work and you kind of cringe at it, and it's like, oh, maybe I could have done that better or whatever. I think everyone has that little, self-doubt. But now I look back on it and I just celebrate, because it was just such a cool time in my life. Like going into school next day and being like, yeah, I was just singing vocals for this really cool thing.
It's amazing.
Yeah. You do have to step away from things. You can't critique yourself into infinity, or especially with music, and especially when you have your own recording studio in the house. There's a temptation to keep tweaking it for 10 years. And to be able to, you really do have to recognize when something is done.
Yeah.
When it's done, it's done.
Yeah, and you have to go and just let that baby grow up and have it go somewhere and go off and go to college and have its own life.
Right. And Jason and John, it's going to be showing on March 5th. After that, is there plans for distribution? Can we see it on the internet or here in the US?
It's already being distributed by Bayview Entertainment. So
Okay.
it's already available as the VOD. The idea was that we approached Bayview because they had released Winifred Meeks, and we said to them, look, if you want it, I sent it to them. They loved it. They loved the new score. They're huge fans of the original film anyway. And I said, if you want it, you have to release it at 1 minute past midnight on the 1st of January. So that way it became the very first newly scored version of the film in the year of its centenary, which we wanted, because historically it becomes that film,
Right.
So they thought that was a great idea. So initially they have their own Vimeo Pro channel, for VOD, and they originally send it out on that, and then they're going to be moving out. They're going to be pushing it out because they have world rights. So they're going to start really pushing it into a lot of little different territories throughout the year and next year. And that, forevermore, pretty much. Let's face it, Nosferatu never goes out of style. So,
Right.
And it's now 100 years old. So it's like over, next year it'll be over a century years. It's just gonna grow, I think, in interest with anyone who's interested in film and where movies began. It's one of the seminal works. So.
It invented so much of the language of horror films. I think there's the visuals and the style, the pacing, the weirdness of it. I think at the time, it's hard to imagine how weird that movie must have been to people seeing it. How creepy and nightmarish it was.
But of course, I think they were quite used to that kind of art, even in the world at the time in Germany. Expressionism was very much part of the painting and even the literature, so it made sense that it would translate to the cinema screen, and that something. But I don't think it was as strange to the Germans as maybe everybody else.
Probably not. But the art-aware Germans anyway. But the average moviegoers who were, might have been.
Mind you, I've got to say, Burke, that people actually at the time, some thought that Max Schreck was a real vampire because he looked so uncanny. And they wouldn't accept. No, he's got to be a vampire. He's got to be a vampire, because there was that film, wasn't there, Shadow of the Vampire with John Malkovich, where they actually made out he was a real vampire. And there's a couple of other interesting things about Nosferatu as well. It was the very first film to show a vampire dying from exposure to the sun, because in the original novel Dracula, it just refers to the fact that he's weakened by the sun. It never mentions that it could kill him. So that was a first as well. So
that's amazing.
And also in Nosferatu, he never turns anyone into a vampire. He just kills them and spreads the plague as well. So there's a lot of people think that he created vampires in that film as well. And there is another little myth I got to dispel, that because it was going to be suppressed, wasn't it? Because the Stoker estate took them to court and loads of copies were seized. I think only 1 or 2 came through, but the filmmakers never actually hid the fact it was based on Dracula. The reason why they changed the location and called him Count Orlok was to appeal to the German audience. It wasn't to get round the copyright. So why they thought the Stoker estate wouldn't do anything, I don't know. But there you go.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Fascinating.
Even then, the business of movies.
Oh yeah.
And F.W. Murnau was quite a film. I mean, his films are so interesting. I mean, he did Sunrise and his career, and I think it came out in 1922, and that was obviously right after World War One, the big Spanish flu pandemic of 19. So there was a lot of sort of. I think this kind of movie this film hit a lot of buttons, like fear, danger, which was happening in that time. So it was there. Later on, it was considered, I think, by the Nazis in World War II, it was like degenerate art. It was like, and it was put away, and they didn't want to even hear of it. So, fascinating career for that film. History.
Yeah. I suppose Murnau was kind of like the Marvel of his day, because he, Marvel would use a lot of the latest technologies in movie making. Mm-hmm. I think Murnau was using, in order to get the effect of the vampire. I think there was some stop-start animation thing. Somebody else I was listening to. And then, there's a scene when the carriage is, when Hutter arrives at Orlok's castle in the carriage, and the carriage appears to be moving really slow and then really fast. Yeah. And then it's in some kind of Simon Morrison type infrared.
Yes.
Right.
That was a really interesting effect where they put it into infrared, and it's like, whoa. That really took me by surprise. So I suppose, given that it was 1922, I mean, for them it was just like kind of watching Star Wars for the first time.
It's cutting edge. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, they really pushed it with a lot of their stage design and things like that. They're obviously painted and weird perspectives and things like that, and sets that were designed and lit for dramatic purposes, and to pull you into these dark spaces. And they were composed a lot like the painting, like you were talking earlier, the style of art around that time. Movies were still, I think, considered an art form.
Sure. Right. Well, we can't wait for it. And before we say goodbye, let's go around, everybody see what they're doing now or currently or will be working on. John, let's start with you. I know you have some books coming out. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, in April, I've got a second ghost book, Britain's Ghostly Heritage, with a cover design by Jason. He's done the intro and also contributed a chapter. I've got a book on the Battle of Gainsborough, which is an English Civil War battle. And I still write the articles for Psychic News, working with Jason on various projects, Colin Wilson, Jack the Ripper documentaries. We've got other films planned. So I'm a busy boy. I'm trying to keep very busy at the moment.
Challenging yourself.
I loved Britain's Haunted Heritage, your first book, so I can't wait to read the second and third. So,
thank you. You'll get copies.
Awesome.
Nice. Yay.
How about you, Jason? Let's go to you next. What's on tap? Anything brewing on the horizon?
Nothing at all. No, quite a few actually. Well, what you have to mention as well, that he's also just written a documentary called Shirley Baker: Life Through a Lens, which is something that we're producing with the Royal Photographic Society and various others, and the Shirley Baker Estate, which an amazing woman, female photographer, the north of England. She was like a social documentarian in terms of photography, and she collected some or took some of the most incredible photographs of communities around Manchester and Salford. So that's one that we have in development at the moment. But currently, I'm editing a 4-part series about the brilliant English writer and philosopher Colin Wilson. So we have 2 episodes fully complete in post this month, and the other 2 then have to be done. There may be a 5th, which will be a lecture about Colin Wilson's life by Gary Lackman, who was, of course, Gary Valentine at a Blondie. Yeah. So he's pretty much an expert in Colin Wilson, and has written a few books. He wrote a biography of him. I think it's called Beyond the Robot, isn't it, John?
Yeah, it is.
So That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
Colin Wilson is a fascinating character.
Yeah, at the age of 24, you went from obscurity to standing, sharing the same mirror with Marilyn Monroe while he straightened his tie and she
Crazy.
tried to get her dress up.
wow.
So
Wow.
funny.
Well, you're a busy boy too. How about you, Jessica and Hugh? What is happening aside from, playing music in the house? What else is going on?
Just playing music in the house.
That's good. That's
That
what
is
it's
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Well, I don't have anything kind of active outside my kind of day job, like musical project wise.
Right.
I'm primarily here to help Jessica. So she's really, she's recording a lot of demos or whatever. So I'm engineering all those
That's
demos.
great. Wow.
And
That's
So,
exciting.
Jessica, what are your aspirations? What's going on with that? What is your what do you want to be?
Wow, that's a good question. Music has always been like ingrained in me, like it's like a part of me, and I feel like it's my purpose. So I'm obviously still in school right now, but I'm working with such amazing writers and producers and different people in the whole musical industry, and I'm being introduced to people that like have written my favorite song, and I get to work with them,
Nice.
which is really, really cool.
Wow.
Outside of just doing the home demos with my dad. So
Right.
it's all very exciting, and I have so many dreams and aspirations, and
That's great.
I just want to enjoy every kind of bit of the journey. But this is I find this the most exciting because no one has heard like my original music yet. So when it's out into the world, and yeah, fingers crossed everyone likes it. So yeah, that's kind of the goal
Yeah,
right
can't
now.
wait.
Well, we'll
good
keep
luck.
watching
Good luck.
you. We'll
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah,
Oh,
we're just
so
hoping
many-
that
So many
Go on,
creative
sorry.
people here. I love it. It's like so much creative energy, and everybody's doing so much stuff. It's very inspiring.
that
Yes,
is,
it
yeah,
is.
that,
Well, it's been great. There's been a great conversation, and we can't wait to see this latest version that you guys put together of Nosferatu. And certainly when other projects for all of you come up, we want to have you back on because you're always a great interview and great guest.
Very inspiring.
Thank you very much.
With us.
Thanks, Stu.
And
thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thanks
sure.
for having us on.
And don't go anywhere as we sign off because we'll chat with you for a few minutes afterwards. And to everybody who's watching, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Watch our podcast. We really appreciate it. So thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.